if government is listing its own enterprises, it is sending a signal that I have confidence in the market. That's what you're saying. When you pull out of the market, okay, and then you allow the market to, what signal are you sending? So you're saying that you don't believe in it. But when you participate in it, the private sector will further come there, will be encouraged to come, because if the government is coming, there must be something. Let's also be part of it.
You're welcome to the Economy and Politics Conversation. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. This edition will be discussing unlocking Nigeria's economic growth through public listing of assets and enterprises. My guest for this conversation is Professor Uche Uwaleke. He's the president of Capital Market Academics of Nigeria. It's great to have you, Professor Uche Uwaleke, in our studio for the first time. Thank you so much for making our time.
Thank you very much, Abasi. Yes, my pleasure. I'm happy to be in your studio.
Yes. Very interesting conversation as we look at how Nigeria can unlock growth, because they say the capital market is the barometer of the economy. And so Nigeria should not be left out. But first, what is that case from the academia studies research that shows the importance of listing public assets in the market? How does it deepen the market, whether it's market to GDP size? Nigeria is not even up to 40% of market to GDP size, whereas other countries have gone far. So what's that case for listing public assets?
I think you've even made the point. When the public assets are listed, that has a way of even encouraging private companies to come and list. So in a way, it of course helps to boost the market cap, overall market cap, which of course in itself will also go a long way to contribute to the size of the economy, and it's also something that will help to deepen the market and boost liquidity. When you have a lot of companies list, what that does too is that it helps to democratize, if you like, wealth creation, because investors are given a number of options. Whether institutional investors, whether retail investors, they are in a better position to diversify their portfolio, because you have a number of listed companies, of course, with their different products. So it encourages diversification. It will help to boost market cap. It will help to improve the liquidity of the market. And for public enterprises, studies have also shown that it goes a long way to improve corporate governance. So it encourages strong corporate governance, improved disclosure, strong corporate disclosure, corporate governance, and also even operational efficiency, because those companies are expected to now be accountable to their shareholders. So they don't have a choice but to improve on their performance. So by and large, listing public enterprises is something that should be encouraged. Unfortunately for us in Nigeria, that hasn't been the case. If you look at the companies we have in Nigeria today on the exchange, which is the main bourse, about 146 of them, how many of them are public enterprises? This is a far cry from what obtains currently in other parts of the world, other jurisdictions. And that's why we must make a case for listing a number of public enterprises in Nigeria on the NGX in particular.
So let's look at policy. I remember that in the 70s, we had policies like the indigenization policy, and that period we saw several public assets listed then. Yeah. But we evolved to the military era, and we're back to democracy, which has sustained for over 2 decades. Yeah. And like you rightly said, it's just a pinch of public enterprise or assets that are listed on the market. Yeah. What policies, what incentives, what kind of reforms at this time is critical to attract, bring these public assets and enterprises on board so that it can attract domestic and foreign investors, especially FDIs?
The necessary conditions are beginning to be put in place in terms of policy. By that I mean that we are beginning to see some level of macroeconomic stability, some level of even policy consistency, because that is critical. So for me, that is the necessary condition, a situation in which you have stable exchange rate, for example. You have moderation in inflation rates. These are policies that will enable the confidence that's required from both domestic and international investors, even to come and patronize any company that is coming to list. So the first thing is for the government to continue to sustain this macroeconomic stability. Policy consistency is key. Investors need policy predictability. Okay, so today we have, for example, we have tax reforms, we have tax laws, and if that changes tomorrow, if investors are not sure of the direction of maybe tax policy, of course they will be affected. So first and foremost, the government must continue to sustain the macro stability and ensure policy consistency. Now, the other thing too I want to mention, yes, we've had some improvements in policies around the pension industry, but I would like to see more more reforms in that area. I'm sure you're aware that recently there has been this regulation amendment that has now encouraged pension funds to increase their allocation to equities with respect to some funds. So but I would like to see a situation in which that is further calibrated, particularly for government entities that are well governed and that will eventually be coming to list. Now, what comes to my mind now very readily is the case of NNPCL. Now, for a long time, we've been receiving assurances that NNPCL would soon be listed on the exchange. But as we speak, I have not seen, except you've seen Abasi, I have not seen any clear roadmap, for that to happen. Okay, as opposed to what we saw in the case of Saudi Aramco.
Yeah.
All right.
Of Saudi Arabia.
Yes, of Saudi Arabia. They had a blueprint, they had a roadmap, okay, that said from 2016, if I'm not mistaken, to 2019 or so, 2019, 2020, that the process will be completed. I haven't seen such a roadmap, yet. All we keep hearing, are assurances that NNPCL will be listed, but there has to be a roadmap, timelines to say by so time this would happen and all that. And that is also why I think that a number of these enterprises that government is thinking of resuscitating, there should be a framework within which they can get listed. These government assets traverses a number of sectors, particularly the oil and gas sector. I've given you the case of NNPCL. Okay, the power sector, as we speak, government still owns 40% shares in both the generating and the distribution companies. And even the real estates that government also owns. Yes, I think some of these things can also find accommodation within the market. The real estate, for example, through REITs, real estate investment trusts. Yeah, so by and large, yes, policies are very necessary. I talked about the macroeconomic environment. I've also talked about even the pension industry itself, pension reforms. And now, particularly now that the pension assets are in excess of 30 trillion, getting to that, so that's huge now for Nigeria. And then the enterprises themselves also need reforms, or in terms of policies, they need reforms. So whether it is NNPCL, whether the public enterprises, need to be first well managed, okay, try to reduce their liabilities, their debts, because at the end of the day, what investors are looking at for will be net positive value, right? So manage something in such a way your debts are reduced. So this is not the time to take on more debts. Why am I saying that? Recently NNPC got involved in another, refinancing project Gazelle 2, where they had borrowed they had borrowed $3 billion and paid down 1.5 through the 90,000 barrels. Now they're taking further additional loans. So the more loans you heap on NNPCL, the more it becomes difficult for them to get listed, because when they get listed, investors are also looking at the value. What's the value? So one big advantage of listing a public enterprise is that it unlocks the true value, because it's by listing that the value emerges. Right now, if you look at the website of the MOFI, Ministry of Finance Incorporated, yes, it says they have 52 companies, and they're holding assets worth 18 trillion. That's what you have on the website. But the true value of this enterprise will not be known until you bring them to the market. Yes, so that is what it will do. It will unlock these values, such that their shares can be appropriately priced or fairly priced. But again, listing doesn't mean that government will, leave completely. Listing simply means you can retain controlling shares, but what you now do is allow, as I said, democratize wealth, allow Nigerians to be part of that process, as opposed to outright privatization.
And Prof, in your studies and are there examples? Because sometimes when they ask you the question, they say, okay, which examples? You mentioned Saudi Arabia.
Yes, I just gave you an example. Saudi Aramco. The case of Saudi Aramco. Today, it is one of the world's highest valued companies. If you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you see Saudi Aramco. Yes. So, and it's just about a small fraction of Saudi Aramco that is listed on the Tadawul. Yeah. The Tadawul is a stock exchange of Saudi Arabia. It's not as if you offload everything, just a small fraction. All right. That's also why even the Dangote issue is just a small fraction that is also going to be listed. So the Saudi Aramco is a good example. If you also go to Singapore, for example, Singapore has the Singapore Airlines. Today, Singapore Airlines is competitive. Today, the Singtel, Singapore Telecom, is also competitive, partly because of this, in public listing. So we have cases in the Asian Tiger, Singapore, Malaysia, all right. And interestingly, Abasi, even Iran. Yes, Iran. Despite the sanctions. Yes. The capital market of Iran today, has become very resilient because of the fact that a number of public enterprises are listed. And in Iran, they did it it was something that was done by law. I think they had an act, if I recall, something 144. So it was a law that made it compulsory for those public enterprises to be listed. Of course, government retained control. So today, if you go to the Tehran's stock exchange, which is the stock exchange of Iran, the largest companies on that exchange, were originally, government enterprises, completely. So today they have been part privatized, listed on the exchange, and it's also helping to, boost the performance of those companies, because corporate governance, has also been enhanced. So the Iranian telecom company, for example, the Iranian copper, for their mining companies, copper, steel, they are listed on the Tehran Stock Exchange. The Iranian telecom company is also there. All right. So these are examples where we can also learn lessons from. And a major lesson from these countries, jurisdictions, is that listing a public enterprise on an exchange, would go a long way to improve the performance of that company. Because one thing you're doing is that you're also inviting, encouraging independent audit. Yes. You're encouraging that company to, of course, make its accounts public. So strong disclosure of their financials. Today, if NNPCL becomes listed, all right, in terms of disclosure, you'll be getting more about NNPC operations. Yes, unlike what it is today. Yeah.
Now, beyond raising capital for government, because that's what you see that Saudi Aramco has done for Saudi Arabia and all these examples you've raised, how can public listings contribute to Nigeria's target of achieving the $1 trillion plus GDP economy? Yes, how critical is that? Because it ties to job creation, sustainable growth, and enhancing revenue.
Yes. Absolutely. In fact, the target, which I expect to see in the forthcoming capital market master plan. Yes, we have been having it. Each time we set the targets, but we never get there. The target has been to get the capital market to reach that $1 trillion before that of the economy.
Okay, $1 trillion
capital market. Yeah. Yes, and it is possible. By the time you get these public enterprises to list, you get NNPCL to list, you get Dangote, some other big companies list. I can tell you that $1 trillion target for the capital market, will be reached, and that is, of course, one sure way of also helping us to attain the $1 trillion economy for Nigeria. In South Africa, the capital market, when we say capital market, capital market includes the fixed income, but this is the stock market and the equities market in South Africa.
The Johannesburg Stock Exchange.
Yes,
JSE.
just the equity segment alone is over 300% of its GDP. Because if you have a market cap, equities cap of close to $1 trillion, and you have a GDP of 300 and something billion dollars for South Africa, so that tells us 300%. So we want that kind of situation in Nigeria, where the market cap will be twice even the GDP of Nigeria. So when people say $1 trillion economy for Nigeria is unattainable, yes, I agree to a large extent it's ambitious, but I also think it's something that is possible. Yes. So beyond the raising of money when you list, of course, if government is listing, government will get some money. That's also one quick way for government to get money. Because when you listing a company, remember I said it will unlock the value. And when it unlocks the value, it helps you to even use that asset to securitize the cash flows from that asset. Securitize means you issue securities against the cash flows from the asset. All right. And when you're issuing securities, you're raising funds. So government raises funds through securitization of its viable assets and borrows less. So one way we can reduce our borrowing today is to securitize some of the assets, that we have. Okay. And that will also encourage, these public-private partnerships. All right. So that will help us to reduce our, borrowing. I think that will happen. So again, I also mentioned the issue of democratizing wealth. You said beyond raising money.
Yes.
Yes. Look, take the case of even retail investors now, for example, you and I. Yeah. Okay. So if I hear that NNPCL is going to be listed, okay, there are people that will invest in it, okay, even for patriotic reasons. Yeah. They want to be identified with that corporation because it is a national corporation. So that way the retail investor base expands, you democratize wealth, and the success of that enterprise, okay, when they make profit and pay dividends, you become part of it. When the share price appreciates and you sell, you also become part of it. So it will help to democratize wealth and create jobs, and it will encourage savings because people will now save to be able to do that. As people are saving now in anticipation of Dangote.
Yes.
Yeah. So as I said, a lot of private is something that will trigger even the private sector, to be part of it. As I said, if government is listing its own enterprises, it is sending a signal that I have confidence in the market. That's what you're saying. When you pull out of the market, okay, and then you allow the market to, what signal are you sending? So you're saying that you don't believe in it. But when you participate in it, the private sector will further come there, will be encouraged to come because, if the government is coming, there must be something. Let's also be part of it. All right. So that is one thing I know will happen. The private sector, retail investor base and all that. And all of that will be work towards the $1 trillion GDP target. Absolutely.
Prof, as we wrap up, what role should the MOFI, because there's a deal room, deal book, we need to see acceleration of activities, even in those 52 or those enterprises that we are seeing, valued at over 18 trillion. I mean, ProShare has been a strong advocate for financialization of assets, securitization, unlocking value from assets, just like other entities like Economy Associates and the rest. What must MOFI, Ministry of Finance Incorporated, Bureau of Public Enterprise, what must they do more now, working with the Finance Ministry to create those incentives to begin to see our public enterprises listed?
Yes, I think they should do more of, even creating awareness. This thing is just within us. Except you visit their website, you don't get to know what they're doing. MOFI has been around since 1960. I don't know whether you're aware. The MOFI Act of 1959. Yes, since 1960. And they have the responsibility to, manage all the assets of the economy. And this country is sitting on, huge resources, trillions of naira. Okay, so I think the pace of their work, in my view, personal view, is very slow. And I also think the public needs to know, what they're doing. There needs to be a roadmap. There needs to be a timeline that says, by so time we should be able to tidy up this issue of asset register. By so time, this number of assets we've identified, we're supposed to, value them, get their value, prepare them for, So there should be a timeline for these things, and the public should also get to know, what they're doing. And if they require help, they should also not fail to seek help from, research firms such as, yours. So that is what they need to do. I think the process is slow, okay? Given the time that MOFI has, been in existence. And for other stakeholders, Securities and Exchange Commission, of course, has a major role to play. They are the ones regulating the market. So I expect them to further, simplify rules, ensure time to market is, further reduced, put incentives for these companies to even come and then list. For the NGX group, NGX Limited, they have the technical expertise. So I also expect that they should be in a position to provide technical assistance to companies, government enterprises that are seeking to list. NGX should be able to do that. The capital market operators, particularly the chartered institute of stockbrokers, okay, securities issuing houses, all of them should be in a position to, assist these enterprises, in seeking to list. So, and more importantly, is the issue of, awareness, sensitization. And I like what SEC is doing now, going around the regions, talking about the market, sensitizing the public about the market. Because it's one thing to say you want to list, it's also another to ensure that by the time you get eventually listed, a lot of people get to participate. Okay, I am always an advocate of listing by IPO, not listing by introduction. Listing by IPO means you are listing and also issuing shares. Yes. Okay, as opposed to what we saw, what we've been seeing, companies get to list and they simply list by introduction. So they don't issue new shares, they're just listing to be able to engage in secondary market activity. What really drives an economy is primary market activity, because that's when you issue shares, you raise funds. It is those funds that you use for expansion. What turbocharged the capital market, the stock market this year, largely, was because of, it was regulatory induced. It was because of the banking sector recapitalization. So that's when we saw, the primary market coming alive. Before, it was nearly dead. So we need to see more of IPOs. We need to see more of primary market activity. Secondary market activity is good because it encourages trading, and you need secondary market to be able to, show that the market is alive so that you can also come to list. But for me, what is more important, what encourages capital formation, which the capital market is about, is the primary market. Okay, it's akin to the argument between IPO, between a portfolio investors and foreign yes, yeah. Foreign portfolio and foreign direct investment. The two are good, right? But the one that is more impactful is foreign direct investment, not foreign portfolio investment. So that analogy is very important.
Prof, very interesting conversation. In short, if we will continue on and on, but we just have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Prof. Professor Uche Uwaleke, for taking our time with your busy schedule to have this conversation on unlocking Nigeria's economic growth through public listing of assets and enterprises. I've taken a lot, especially the reality that Iran, despite all these things, has its public assets listed.
Yes.
And that's why it's resilient.
Yes.
And like you rightly said, primary activities in the market.
Yes. Very clear.
Galvanizes economic activities.
That's correct.
And that's the pathway we expect for our government to take. Incentives drive public listings and will unlock opportunities for our economy. Thank you very much, Professor Uche Uwaleke, President, Capital Market Academics of Nigeria, for this conversation.
Thank you, Abasi. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So our viewers, that will be all for this conversation. If you want to get further insights, log on to our website displayed on the screen and follow our social media platform handles as displayed. Till we come your way again, I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. Thank you for watching and bye for now.